2 times a week, I would get FedEx packages in the mail with $50,000 in cash. The DEA would come down. Right. You ready to talk now? That's the plug. I'm not gonna send my plug to prison. And I would just walk in with a duffel bag full of, you know, whatever, 400,000 or 500,000 in cash. So I tried to bribe him, right? As you do.
He's up on stage coming at you, and I thought, yep, I knew that was a bad.
I love. Kidding, of course.
No, what are you doing?
Kidding, of course.
My God.
Just trying to get you. I'm just trying to get your channel taken down.
So I do have some questions. Because I actually don't know. I know you started off by saying, you know, we're both overexposed. But I honestly have only seen bits and pieces of your whole story. Like I can probably weave it together and get 80% of it. But I don't, you know, there are questions I have like, so it's middle class, brother and a sister.
I'm the oldest.
Dad's a lawyer. Drug dealing.
Yeah.
That's the way to go. Is that what all your friends were saying? So what, your dad's a lawyer, you're definitely going drugs, right?
Well, you got to know this about me, Matt. I come from the 90s. I was like the second iteration of Wiggers. Okay. Right. I just grew up listening to gangster rap at a young age. And some of us actually went and emulated what we listened to in rap. Like we were dumb enough to do that. Like Scarface in the 80s, we talked to OG crack dealers from New York City, black guys from Harlem, and they're like, dude, when Scarface came out, that's why I got in the game. Scarface the movie. Yeah. So this shit really does influence people, but it was a collusion. It was, you know, boring like psychological factors, you know, how I was raised, you know, we always had the poverty mindset, like the scarcity mindset in my house, even though we lived in like this beautiful, you know, in this old Victorian home in, you know, Northeast Portland, it's a great neighborhood. But my dad was like, oh yeah, if I would order a Coke out at dinner, right? He takes out to dinner, order whatever you want. I would order a Coke, and he was the guy who was like, oh, you're breaking me. Right. I got a mortgage to pay. You know what I mean? He was that asshole. Yeah. So I was always worried about being poor. I was always in the mindset, like we could lose this shit overnight. So there was that. I never wanted to work a job. And it was just the times, like everybody was getting money from selling. So it was all just kind of formed who I became later.
So were you selling in high school?
Yeah, just like everybody. But I would look at.
It's not like everybody.
Like, you know, everybody sold in high school.
Colby, you sold in high school, didn't you? No,
he's lying.
He's
never got caught.
Colby is as my wife. She's like, he is as pure as the driven snow. The first time he came here and met with and I remember thinking, because it was like 3 people in a row. Every single one of them were just like derelicts. Even the cop that came, I interviewed Mike Dowd. Mike Dowd was a derelict. And I'm looking at Colby, and Colby's face is just like, what have I gotten myself into? I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Who are these people?
Yeah. Okay, so Colby never sold. But Colby wasn't from.
I'm sure he knows a guy.
Yeah, he knows a guy. But if he had grown up in, you know, Northeast Portland, where you would find you would just hear about these kids, 18-year-olds, and they're fucking selling pounds, and that's all they do.
You're right.
That's all. You mean they don't have a job? And when I found that out, I'm like, oh, that's it. That's all I want to do. So how do you actually do that?
Right. Because if you buy it from them, you can't resell it at a profit because you're buying it at the going rate.
Exactly. So how do I plug myself into the line of distribution? That was fascinating. Drug dealing and that kind of black market, that kind of invisible hand of the market was fascinating and still kind of is. Like how do billions of dollars a year of cartel drugs that make it into America they just get sucked up and cash comes back? I thought that was so crazy. So later when, you know, 2 times a week, I would get FedEx packages in the mail with $50,000 in cash just for shipping out a bunch of pounds a week. It was like magic. You know what I mean? So
how do you get to the initial dealer though?
Well, you know, so again, in high school, selling, you know, buying retail, getting a bad price, good product, but way overpriced. Don't know what to do. You can't make any money. You're selling weed to your friends. You're smoking it. You're fucking up the pack, as we would say. So the turning point was when I got to college at the U of O, University of Oregon in Eugene, and we started buying from growers. So you go to the guy. The idea is to be the wholesaler. So you go to where it's made,
right,
and get the best price. So we initially met some like redneck, people that lived in the mountains of Southern Oregon. These laid off blue collar white guys, right?
Growing it up in the mountains on free land
no, their own land.
Oh, okay.
So they would collectivize. They would take a bunch of different medical marijuana cards, licenses to grow pot, right?
Okay.
20, 30 plants, but then they would all combine them to get these 100,000 plant grows. But the best price came from the Mexicans, the cartel people, the people that would just hike onto federal land.
Right.
And, they do Mexican labor. They're the ones willing to go days into the Sierra Mountains of Northern California, and they cut down trees, they run irrigation, they know how the light hits the plants perfectly. It's amazing. And they're the ones that get thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds every year, and therefore they got the best price. So, I'm buying now pounds for $1,800, $2,000, and I have distributors on the East Coast that are buying them for $3,500 a pound. My profit's $1,500 a pound. I can do that, 30, 50 times a week. That becomes millions of dollars very quickly. You know what I mean?
Aren't you concerned though? I mean, if you're moving that kind of product, aren't you concerned? Aren't people that you're dealing with getting busted? I mean, don't you?
Yeah, that's of course a concern of mine, but possession is 9/10 of the law. So I figured, okay, if I'm shipping boxes all over the U.S., I'm just shipping them. I'm not putting them under my name. I have people that are doing that for me. This is before you had to give your ID when you shipped out a package,
right?
Through FedEx. You didn't have to do that back in the mid 2000s. So I had people taking the boxes there for me. Okay, I'm not touching it. I have people helping me receiving the money. I'm not touching it. So it was a layer of separation, and plus, but it's always a risk when you're selling.
Right.
It's why you can do it 300 times, but then the one time.
Yeah, you could do it twice,
right?
And it could go bad. You could do it 1,000, and you're just
right.
You get lucky, or
yeah.
It's funny because how many times I've met somebody who was just a fluke. They got it's just a fluke.
That's how I got busted.
Yeah,
fluke. Nobody was wearing a wire. Nobody was snitching.
You just got pulled over?
No, I never got jammed up on a traffic stop, and we made that drive from Southern Oregon up to Portland, Eugene 1,000 times. At the end, we had our own. When I was rich,
white privilege.
I had my own, for sure, absolutely. I've said this on the Connect. I only had white mules. I only had white drivers,
right.
And they had to have clean records. No felonies, certainly no outstanding, probation or anything like that.
No expired tags, no broken taillights.
No, exactly. So, and actually one time we did have one of our best customers did get pinched, and he rolled on us, and we had a stash house get raided. And, they found us with product and money and shit like that. So after that, that's when we switched it up. That's when I said, no more. We're only shipping this off to people out of state.
Okay. Well, what happened with those guys that got busted?
So
or did you get busted?
So yes, I got busted.
That's when you went to prison.
Okay. That's when I got on paper. I got a felony. They were like, hey, look, white boy. Fucking college boy. I was fresh out of college when this happened. I was 23. I just turned 23. They're like, we'll get this reduced to a misdemeanor. Just give us, we can tell you have weight on you. Bring us to your guy who you're getting it from. And I'm like, I'm not telling on the Connect. I need that. That's the plug. I'm not gonna send my plug to prison because I knew my business. I had just met new buyers on the East Coast that were willing to pay these crazy markups. So I knew my business was about to explode. I'm talking going from, a $5,000 a week profit, which was an unbelievable success, to $50,000 a week. So, no, but I didn't have to do any, I bonded out. I got probation. I was a felon now, and I'm on, so I know that if I get pop the next time I'm going in.
And this wasn't the feds, right? This was this is just
these are just local pigs. Task force, yeah.
Okay. So you get out. You don't go get a regular job and put this to the side and say, I'm just going to do the right thing from now on. Didn't work out.
10x the business. As you do.
So
this is why laws work. This is why prison really does work.
Because the first time I got busted, I got 3 years paper. And I always say, I'm like, what I should have done was claim bankruptcy, because I couldn't be a mortgage broker anymore. So I lose my business.
Right.
I can't make the kind of money I'm making. I can't keep committing fraud. Like if I can't do that, then I can't pay my bill. So I'm going to claim bankruptcy, move into my parents' spare room, go sell used cars. That's what I should have done. Not what I did. I did the exact opposite. Well, now I'm a felon. Right. So the gloves are off. Mm-hmm. So the veneer of looking legitimate is gone.
Right.
Just start fucking committing a massive fraud. The shit that you were unwilling to do before, now go all in.
Right.
So stupid.
Right. But if you had done 3 years in prison right from the first offense, I think
I would have been I would have been like, fuck, I could end up in prison for this. Yeah. Instead, I got slapped, like you said, I got 3 years paper.
Right.
I'm not going to prison.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah. So I don't know what the solution on a societal level is. Because then if you hit a guy, punish a person too hard right off the bat, they may just completely give up and then become even worse. So
yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I'll leave that to smarter people than me.
So yeah, that was really the game for me was how do I know there's millions to be made, so I should be the one getting that money. I always felt like that. You know what I mean? I was so immature. I had such a low vibration, right? Like now I don't get jealous of anybody in this space.
Right.
You or whoever else runs like in the crime podcast space, because I'm operating on like a level of like creation instead of competition. Yeah. But back in the day, like you hear about this guy, he blew up. Like you heard he blew up. He's big time now. Yeah. He won't even sell you a bag of weed. He's in the game. I would turn like green with envy.
Right.
Like might even try to go rob him.
Right.
So, and that happened all the time though. Like I got stuck up. You're talking about people like it was serious back before weed was now just this like completely legal commodity.
Right.
I remember shipping like there were these cats in like rural Connecticut, these fucking white boys, and I would get them like 10 pounds a week. That's a good 100,000 a month I was making off of them. But they were giving it to a guy, one of their distributors, and he fucking got tied up and shot to death.
So
wild.
So it's super serious. So it's like
it was serious.
Do you feel like it was that serious or something like that happens and you're like, holy shit?
Yeah.
Nobody in the mortgage industry is getting tied up and shot.
No. Nah.
So. I mean, so you must.
They should.
Yeah.
But they don't.
At that point, you must have been like, right?
Yeah. Well, because you don't see it when you're at that high of a level. You're only dealing with 2 or 3 people at a time, and then it just goes out to that invisible consumption.
Right. There's people at the bottom that are shooting each other.
Totally.
I have a buddy, Pete. I remember I wrote a book about him, and he was, he's moving 100 pounds of meth. Like they're manufacturing meth, and he's moving 100, 200, like $2 million, $3 million. And I was like, do you guys have guns, security? He goes, no. He goes, look, it's not the movies. He goes, at that level, you're not dealing with anybody that's going to bring a gun. No. Nobody's bringing a gun. He said, at that level, you don't. He said, at the lower level, they're shooting each other. Mm-hmm. He said, they're shooting each other over $10 crack rocks. Mm-hmm. He said, but at that level, he said, you don't. You're even giving it to him on consignment. The guy owes me $1 million. Yeah. He's like, I'm not going to bring a gun. There's no money.
Right.
He's like, and then the guy brings it back, and if he doesn't, he said, well, maybe, he said, you just never sell to him again, or.
Right. Now, if you're dealing with, it depends. Before cameras everywhere, if you were an American distributor, when the cartels really had people in the States, if you owed him...
This was prior to the cartel getting involved, by the way, because they actually at one point came to him and wanted him to come to Mexico, and he wouldn't. He was scared. He's like, my fear is I'd go there, they'll just chain me to the fucking floor. I'll never leave. I'll be in some jungle fucking lab in the middle of nowhere. He's like, I'll never leave.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah.
Because he had the recipe.
Oh, yeah. He was the one making it. He was manufacturing it. Listen, his story is very Breaking Bad. Like they actually had a university professor, a retired university professor that helped them figure out the precursor materials, how to make it, how to manufacture them. I mean,
so he was the Jesse.
Yes.
To Walter White.
Yes.
We got to get him on the show.
Yeah, I do. He's just got his ankle monitor off.
Great.
Just got out of prison.
Great. How long did he do?
He did, I'm going to say 27 or 28 years.
Oh, wow.
Not for the meth, but it was the murder of the 2 federal informants, which he didn't do. He's a nice guy. Mm-hmm. He just moved the bodies. Because somebody has to move the bodies. You can't. One of them was killed in the meth lab. He's like, what am I going to call the cops and say, here, look, I found the guy. Forget about the meth lab.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about this officer. He's like, no, I got to move it. So, he said I had to move it. And then he said the other guy, same thing. The guy got shot, and he's like, he got shot, and he said we had to get rid of the body.
But he didn't do it. He
says he didn't. I believe Pete. Well, he said he didn't do it.
I mean, did he go to trial, or did they?
No.
Did he roll on the guy who actually did it?
So at first they said he did it. At first everybody said Pete did it, but then they started failing polygraphs. So then they said, okay, Pete didn't do it, but Pete told I did it, because everybody said, well, no, he did it. So finally the guy's like, okay, I did do it, but Pete told me to do it. So now these guys roll over on him. He gets busted. Now he's got to go to prison. Do you know who Robert Mueller is? That he was the head of the FBI.
Yeah,
he was in charge of the Russia investigation.
Yeah, Robert Mueller.
That was his prosecutor.
Oh, wow.
Mueller comes in and says, look, take 40 years, and then and help me get these guys. And when these guys these guys take a plea or whatever, he's like, then we'll reduce your sentence. And actually, if you know anything about the federal Senate or federal
guidelines,
not just the guidelines, but the system, you'll never get it in writing. They're always going to say, like in the state, you can get it in writing.
Right.
So in the feds, they say, we'll if you help us, provide us substantial assistance, we'll consider it for a reduction.
That's so crazy. That's so fucking crazy.
And I've seen hundreds of people's paperwork. Pete's the only person I've ever seen that had a airtight document that said, if you just talk to me, you're going to get. You will get your sentence reduced just for talking to me. And it was signed by Robert Mueller to him. And so Robert Mueller came and talked to him actually 2 or 3 days, him and an FBI agent. He said, this is what happened. I did not kill the person. I did not order the fucking murder, which he didn't want to hear. And then they used Pete saying what happened to get the 2 guys that were blaming him. They end up taking pleas. They get 25 years. Pete gets 40. Mueller becomes FBI director and doesn't want to reduce his sentence. So he did have the paper, luckily, and he does eventually get his sentence reduced.
Damn, so he got more money than the shooters?
More time.
The killers?
He got more time.
More time on
those guys got out years ago.
That's crazy.
Right. He ended up, ultimately, I think he got like 5 or 6 years off his sentence, which was nothing. Yeah. Like you're supposed to get in half. I just gave you the 2 murderers who've been lying to you.
Right. Dude, this is my lawyer told me as much when I, finally took the pinch that sent me to prison.
Right.
They had all this money. They knew I was connected. The DEA would come down to my cell every other day. Right. You ready to talk now? And my lawyer was like, dude, they could just get you. They can just have you working for them for years.
Yeah.
Years. And you don't know what you're going to have to do for them. They don't have a lot. That's why they're talking to you. That's why they're trying to get you to talk, because they don't have a lot. You might as well just risk. Let's just go do 3 years.
Yeah. Well, if you stay in the state, in the state, you can get a deal in writing. You can walk in there and know I'm getting 3 years. There's nothing the judge can do about it. Yeah. They said 3 years. I signed for 3 years. Everybody agreed on 3 years. And if the judge says I don't agree, he might not sentence you. And he might say, go back, fix this. This isn't right. And then maybe the prosecutor can come back in and say, Your Honor, and argue for you because they want you to do that. But in the feds, first of all, you're not getting 3 years in the feds. You're probably getting 9 or 10 or 15 years in the feds. And then, which is always going to be, it's always going to be 5 times as long as the state. And you don't know that you're even going to get the deal that they're telling you you're going to get.
Right.
The judge might say, yeah, I'm not going to reduce it. did something on probation. He failed 2 urines on probation and or on pretrial release. And you know what? Fuck him. I'm not going to give him the 10 years off. Or you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So it's basically no laws. When the highest law of the land doesn't really have any constraints on them.
Yeah, they don't play by their own rules.
Now, on the other hand, in the federal system, especially now, like under the First Step Act,
right?
Trump, basically allowed judges to give leniency for mandatory drug cases.
And you don't have to do all your time. You used to have to do 85% of your time.
Right.
You can do like 55%.
Right. And now if you have exemplary prison records, people that had life for selling crack in the 80s and 90s can now get out.
Right.
And which I think is a good thing. In the state, there's no mechanism for that. So, so actually I met people
in Oregon. Like every state's different.
Every state's different, but a lot of places don't have the mechanism. We've talked to like federal lawyers that all they do is write these appeals.
Right.
People are sitting in state prison oftentimes for especially back when weed was fully illegal. If you got caught with 100 pounds at your first offense, you'd probably do about 3 years in the feds. You got caught with 100 pounds in Texas, you're sitting in there for twice the amount of time if you weren't charged by the feds. So you were actually incentivized before you have points, and we're just like teaching people now. YouTube, we're not. Nobody should sell drugs. The game's over with anyways, guys. The Mexicans have it in a smash. Nobody's going to take this info and actually go do it. You wouldn't be stupid enough, would you? You wouldn't be like Jonny Mitchell after he heard the Snoop Dogg album back in '94. You wouldn't actually go do the things that you're hearing about. You were actually incentivized to push as much weight as possible. Because if 5 kilos to 150 kilos is the same sentencing, let's push 150 kilos.
Right.
It's all a minimum 5 years.
You're hoping to get caught by the state in that case. Because you just said you'd get 3 times as much in the fed.
Right. Well,
usually the problem is it's the reverse.
Usually yes, correct.
And it depends on the state, because I know in the state of Florida, there was a time where if you got caught with, selling, let's say, oxys, you might get 3 or 4 years in the Fed, but the state of Florida was giving these guys 10 years because it was such an epidemic here. They're giving them 10, 15. They're giving weight, but it was just that.
Right.
Anything else, it was the reverse.
Right. Totally.
Right. And every state's different. That's the problem, is that, you see the people in the comment section like, that's not true in the state. Okay. In your state, like what you get 10 years in, in California for, you might get 2 years in Georgia, or reverse.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you're reading the comments. That's.
Oh, bro, I read them all the time. I do. I love the comment section.
You don't get out a lot.
I don't get out a lot. I don't. This is all I do. And I read the comments, and sometimes I respond, and if it's worth responding to. I don't read all of them, but yeah.
And they must love that. Cox responded to me.
They do love it.
Even though I was shitting on him.
And they shit on me all the time. And I'm like, oh, bro, they're like, what's with the fucking commercials, bro? Like every 5 minutes there's a commercial. I'm like, well, I don't work for free, and you should consider joining YouTube Premium.
Right.
Like no commercials, bro, and you also get YouTube TV and free movies. Like it's a great $15 a month or whatever it is.
10, I think.
Yeah, it's great. And then they don't like that. No, I'm trying to help you. It's about people helping people, and they get mad at that. Yeah, like I can't help these guys.
Yeah, the biggest problem with people in the crime space. I mean, people that are fans of this genre are the worst people.
Oh yeah.
No offense. And the good people out there know who they are. But the problem is everybody's like, nah, cap. This is really what it is. It's like everybody has a distinct story. Just because you didn't experience what I went through doesn't make what happened to me not true. Moron.
Right. This guy's lying. This guy's this. This guy's that. That never happens.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. When I was a child, I didn't want to believe that people could become fabulously wealthy selling drugs.
Right.
And that's just because I didn't think I had the confidence to go do it. Yeah. It came from the insecurity of like, I can't do that. Well, then he must be lying about it. Like, no,
he is.
Sorry.
Yeah. Right.
So,
well, what about?
I think it's a very low emotion.
Or you can't get. I love the one you can't get. you can't get any time for a white collar crime. You don't get any time. Are you serious?
Squeeze me? Have you heard of Bernie Madoff?
Yeah, I was gonna say there's guy like the problem is most white collar guys like they get clipped once for something minor,
right?
Or they roll over on each other.
Right.
So that guy stole $100 million, or he's charged with $100 million, and he ended up doing 5 years. Well, he gave them 10 people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like otherwise, he was going to do 25 or 30, and he still had some money, so he had a good lawyer.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
And you could maybe make the argument that they don't prosecute white collar crime enough. Okay.
Right.
That you could argue that. You could argue that bankers, are ruining the country and we're imploding. Like there's that kind of like nebulous or kind of like theoretical argument. But no, there's statutes for depending on how much money you steal and say like an embezzlement scheme, it's just like drugs. Over this amount of money, it's this much time. Yeah. And it's a lot of fucking time.
Yeah, it starts adding up. Especially the more clever you are, the worse it is for you.
Yeah, yeah.
You evaded jurisdiction. You used that's an enhancement. Oh, it's more than 50 victims. That's an enhancement. More money. That's if it's a sophisticated scheme, that's an enhancement. Like they start adding it up, and it's like, listen, you can get 3 or 4. You could steal $5 or $6 million and end up getting 5 or 6 years.
Right.
But guess what? If you have more than 50 victims, okay, we're now turned into 8 years. Mm-hmm. If it was sophisticated means were involved, okay, now you're at about 11.
Right.
If it, you start adding it up, next thing you know, like you end up with 26 years for $6 million, and you're like, my base level says I'm supposed to get 5.
Yeah.
So
that's if you stack consecutively. In your case, did they stack it?
No. What do you mean? No. Oh no, I would have gotten 150 years. No. Well, I would have gotten. The only thing they stacked was aggravated identity theft. So I got an extra 2 years. So really I had 24 and a half years, but I got 26 and a half because they added 2 years. Because it's automatic. They have to stack it. If in your scheme you stole someone's identity, which I did. And I feel bad about that.
Yeah.
But so
yeah, homeless people.
Yeah, some were homeless.
Dude. I as Brian was reading in the car over here, as he was reading your wiki bio, I just kept falling more and more in love with you. I'm like, I fucking love this guy, dude. That cock fucking rules, and I'm putting that out there.
Listen, they always make it sound horrible. Like I gave these guys like $20. They filled out an application. They were happy to get the fill out. Happy to fill it out. Happy with the $20.
Totally fair
and
exchange.
They weren't really using their information, and I don't know that nothing happened to them.
No,
they're fine.
They're dead.
So, yeah. So what happened then?
So
you got out. You started selling more and more
then
drugs.
The business blew up.
Right.
Became a millionaire. It's just and became conscious of the fact that like, okay, I'm a target now. I got to get out of the game.
What do your parents think you're doing?
I was always bullshitting them, I was always like saying
your dad's got to have a good bullshit meter though.
Oh,
right?
No, they knew I was selling.
Oh, okay.
I was always, dude, I would be home. Like, how like as a college student, you go home for the summer, stay with your parents. They were constantly finding me with money.
Right.
My dad would walk out and be like, hey, I found a backpack with like 50 grand.
Right.
So it's like,
That's Bobby's.
Yeah.
It's Jimmy's.
I blame it on my sister. Yeah. It's Grace's. She's the one's selling
give it to her.
Yeah. So, but no, he'd be like, you can't stay here. They would kick me out. Like they didn't put up with it. I mean, they weren't like incredibly strict, but they were reasonable. So no, they knew I was.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm a lawyer, and you got drugs and money coming through my house.
Yeah,
like
you can't be involved in this.
Yeah. So they knew what I was up to, but when I finally got busted and they saw all the paperwork, that's when they were like, whew.
Right.
I'm proud of this kid. He was pushing weight. So yeah, that's
So you moved out, you got your own place.
Yeah,
right?
I had my own place, but I was moving apartments. Like it was such a great life in many ways. Like I was so free. I would just every month go get a new fully furnished apartment, like the best that they had in Portland at the time, right? Overlooking the river, and I would just walk in with my duffel bag full of whatever $400,000 or $500,000 in cash, and that was just the cash that I rolled with, right? I had it stashed every which way, but then I had my cash. It was like my pillow money, helped me sleep good at night, right?
Right.
and then just my suitcase full of possessions, and then I would just walk into a fully furnished spot. So I was always bouncing around. Yeah, and what happened was, and I was reading books. I'm reading Robert Kiyosaki, right? Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a rite of passage.
All right.
So, and I'm like, oh, okay, I have this superpower. If I quit, I basically would get away with it. I'll roll this into legitimate business, right? I was obsessed in my mind with like the gangster turning businessman, like the kind of Joe Kennedy, right? The old world kind of, he's coming legit and he's going to make a legacy. And I thought I was going to be this like big, rich, legitimate business guy. But I didn't, it takes a lot. I didn't have any skills besides what I was doing.
But,
so,
people, I find people that are successful in one industry think they're going to be able to be successful in other industries.
Yeah.
Same thing with people that are successful in, especially if it's like crime. Yeah. They think I was a successful criminal, and that will carry over to the business world. But the percentages aren't the same, bro.
It may, right? The margins aren't the same. You're right, and you can't just walk into it unless you have so much money. You can't just walk into it. It takes time. Yeah. It takes like years.
Well, look, if you buy $10 million worth of real estate and just start collecting rent, you're right. You're gonna make money.
Right.
Of course, you got a huge leg up. You got $10 million in real estate. Right. You can't lose unless you're just a retard.
Right. But how do you buy $10 million worth of real estate in cash in this day and age? It takes
not now
sophistication.
It takes to really launder that
and manpower and time. And still, you're still paying a tax on the money, even if you. Even if you have $1 million, just the laundering process, you're going to lose 30%. You're paying a tax one way or the other.
Yeah.
So, but it all came, it all ended, right? There was a package of money getting sent to me from one of my distributors on the East Coast. And these guys were sloppy. I love dealing with like Dominicans and black people, if you can believe it, because they were... Kidding, of course.
What are you doing?
Kidding, of course.
My God.
Just trying to get you. I'm just trying to get your channel taken down. I like dealing with people of color because they were just the best. They were the tightest. Why? Because they don't have white privilege.
Right.
They assume when they're selling drugs that there's a chance that there will be some police interdiction.
So they're extra careful.
Yes. So they were just on point. But dealing with these like suburban, Guinea kids from just trying to not say racial slurs.
Right.
And I just say these were like
because Guinea's not.
These were kids. No, nobody cares about Guinea. These Dagos were basically children of like mafia guys out of Philly. Right. But nice kids, but they were spoiled. They were like, fucking pillheads and all this shit.
So they got 100,000 in the back and they're doing donuts and they're running through.
Totally. You get it. These are like South Jersey, like Philly suburb kids. And I would get packages of money, like $20,000 and it would just reek. Like they wouldn't even vacuum seal it.
Right.
Like I would vacuum seal their drugs. I'm like, you can't, police go after cash.
Oh,
this is
bro,
like a known.
You're making a big deal about it. It's like like they're not
exactly.
understanding.
Like they would just yeah me. Yeah. Like it would smell like they were smoking blunts and then blowing it on the cash before they packaged it up. So eventually, one of those packages got a drug sniffing dog in a FedEx sorting facility hit on it, and they tracked it all the way to Oregon, and it led to me. So.
Well, I mean, led to you like it was being delivered to your house, or
no? It was being delivered to one of the pickup locations,
right?
Which
like
was
a UPS store or something.
It was like a UPS store. Right. Yeah,
they called you and said, "We've got something for you."
No. They waited. Like I tracked it. They did a good job because the feds did, or the feds in combination with like the Portland task force, they didn't hold the package up at all. Because I would trace, I'm online now, this is 2010, so I'm tracing everything, every step of the way. And if there's a box or a package that's super delayed, I'm like, that's a dead package. They let this one go all the way through without any delays. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I picked it up and I got in my car, I got lit up by the undercovers. So I took them on a high-speed chase. got away because I'm speeding through like my neighborhood where I grew up, speeding through it like 90. So they back off. I stash my car and I walk. I wait till it's dark and then I walked to where I was living at the time. You know, as I said, like every month I'm switching apartments. I lived like a mile from my parents' house. So I took the money back to my apartment and that's not under my name. I'm like, these motherfuckers assumed I was safe,
right.
and they knew where I had lived. So that was pretty wild. So they got a warrant, searched the house, found, you know, over $500,000 in cash. No drugs though.
How'd they search the house? I mean, like, did they wait? Were you sleeping and they knocked on the door?
No. When I got back, I went into my house and they knocked and they actually
we've got your car out
here.
They
actually didn't have a warrant. I made them go get a warrant.
Okay.
Because, you know, they had the money package.
So they wait with you. They don't let you like.
No.
They kind of wait. Yeah.
No, they detain me. But I remember an old criminal telling me, even though it seems like they got you, don't let them search it. Make them do the work.
Right.
Make them get the warrant. So it's like dark. It's like nighttime by the time they search. By the time they actually get it signed off by a judge, they go in, you know, they find everything but the kitchen sink. You know, they didn't find any dope. No, I never kept product at the house, but, you know, they had 2 Ziploc bags full of cell phones, $500,000 in cash, I think some packaging material. So I tried to bribe them, right? As you do.
What did you say? Well, I guess you guys found nothing. You'll be leaving, right?
You guys got kids in college. But it wasn't the feds at the time. It was just the task force.
Right.
And it was just, I think, me and 3 other guys. Not even a sergeant. And I'm like, guys, just...
I've seen Training Day. I know how this works.
Exactly. I was like, just tell them I got away. I'm not even saying like I'm not even asking you to like call off the warrant. Anything, right? Yeah, exactly. Saying you didn't find anything. Just give me a head start. Give me a 24 hours to get out of here.
Right.
I'm like your sergeant's not even here. Like you guys are.
What are you thinking that you're going to just be on the run?
Yeah, I got a Canadian passport. I'm half Canadian, so I could run there. I got, you know, a property that I think I'm trying to buy in Colombia, South America. So I got hundreds of thousands that they still don't know about that right. I can access. You know, I'm just panicked, right? And let me go on the run. Let me take the money they haven't found, hide it overseas, then come back, turn myself in, deal with it later, right?
Are you off? You're off probation?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're still on probation.
I'm still on probation. So when they bring me in, I can't. I know that I can't bond out. So right. I'm like, just let me run. Let me do what I got to do, and then I'll come back and turn myself in.
Did they say, well, let us talk about it for a little bit?
These were Boy Scouts. These were fucking, and this would only happen.
Let us think about it for a minute.
Now, if this was Florida, if this was like the Bronx, these are Irish, right. Italian cops, I think they'd have a new fishing boat. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But no, these are dorks.
Right.
So, and then the DEA shows up and they're like, what?
Fucking do-gooders.
Fucking, you know, yeah, these honest men. So, but then like, because a DEA guy shows up and he's like, whoa, like they're like, they caught somebody, like they got a fish, because they're like, this is not normal to have, you know, almost 600,000 in cash just laying in somebody's house. So they're like, who are you working for? Who are you holding this for? You know, where's the heroin? Where's the meth? Talk to us. They knew I was cartel connected.
So this is still just marijuana.
This is all marijuana. It's all marijuana.
I don't know why I thought at some point it became coke, or so I thought you.
No, I mean I sold coke when I was a smaller time marijuana dealer,
right? Just
to supplement my income. If there was a drought and you couldn't get to sell,
right?
You would start moving coke just to stay supplement. Afloat, right? Yeah, but no, I was selling so much weed there was no need to sell coke, but it didn't matter. They knew that I was connected with a cartel somehow.
Right.
They just knew it. But they thought I was like working for them. They thought I was like, I was like the George Jung, right? I was in the family. And it's not true. They were just a supplier.
Yeah.
They were just one of my suppliers. So that's who they were trying to twist me and get me to cooperate on. But look, I kept my mouth shut and they had nothing. They had nothing besides what they had on me, getting caught red-handed.
So you end up in jail.
Yeah.
Or, whatever.
Detention.
Jail.
Yeah.
Detention. Yeah. So you go to jail and the feds, they come in. Well, you get an attorney right away, right?
Yeah. I have my attorney on retainer.
Okay. So he comes in.
Yeah.
The feds talk to him, or they talk to you. You explain about the DEA has been coming. They're trying to come and talk to me. And your attorney says what?
Well, originally it's a state case. The feds pick it up, charging me with money laundering, tax evasion. But what they're trying to do is just to get me to cooperate.
Yeah. Well, and money laundering, here's the funny thing about money laundering, what most people don't realize is that money laundering holds a lot of time. Like for money laundering, you can get a lot of time.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't sound like a big deal, right? It's like tax evasion. You think, you can't get very much.
Yeah, you get a couple of years.
Yeah.
I was not actually too scared about that. Like, at least my lawyer kept me calm. Like he's saying they're going to get you on a drug conspiracy if they can prove that you're connected with, you're moving drugs.
Yeah.
But they don't have any evidence unless they get you to tell on yourself and then cooperate against, my suppliers.
Right. What is he saying to do?
He's like, we're gonna basically make a proffer. We're gonna forfeit all this cash plus other cash that you have, and we're not gonna tell on anybody. And then we're gonna get the feds to just seize the money with we won't appeal it or anything like that. And then the state, they're gonna give the case back to the state. Because the state is the people who originally charged. My first felony was with the state.
Yeah.
And so the DA wanted the case, but with the money, that's where, like, I guess the assistant U.S. attorney got involved. But when they saw that they couldn't make a big, when the Fed saw that they couldn't make this a gigantic like conspiracy case, they took the money and then got out of the way, and then I got charged by the state.
Well, after being arrested, it really limits their ability to use you in an effective way.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like if you're arrested and they could release you within an hour or two, and it's like, hey, nobody even gonna know about this. We can wire you up. You can help us out. You can work with us for 3 or 4 months, which could be years. Like I've met guys in jail that were like, no, like fucking not. I'm like, oh, because nobody cooperates in prison. But then when they find out you cooperated, then you're kindred spirits. So periodically you'll hear things, right? Next thing you know, I got the whole story, and it's not the story you told these guys. And then like I talked to one guy, he was like, yeah, I cooperated. I got some time off. I'm like, oh, okay. And he's telling me his story, and I was like, so how long would that take? A few weeks or months? How long did that? He's like, oh no, bro, it was years.
Yeah.
I'm like, a year or two? He's like, no, like almost 3 years. And you're like, are you fucking serious?
Dude, we talked to a guy on my podcast. He cooperated for a decade.
That's insane.
He was working for that. He was a cop.
Right.
You're a cop at that point.
Yeah. Well, I talked to a guy who it probably was close to a decade too. It was white collar, by the way. He was gonna come on, talk to his lawyer because there were still cases going on that he busted 4 and 5 years ago.
Right.
So he's like, I can't. My lawyer said this. They'll be pissed. He contacted the FBI. They said no. Like I was so like, oh my God, he has such an insane fucking story. It was so good. At one point, he infiltrated a company and then hired his FBI handler to work at the company with him. I mean, he's got this insane story.
Yeah.
But okay, so
con artists, like they could be actors in Hollywood. It's wild.
So you're not really effective anyway. So they give it back to the DA. Okay.
Yeah, and then he charges me with bribery.
Why bribery? Oh, because of the guys.
Yeah, and we got that tossed because it's their word versus mine, and it's crazy. But you know how they overcharge you, right? They throw everything at you.
Just a couple of guys talking.
Exactly. We're just talking here, and that's what I said. I think I said that. I'm like, guys, we're just talking here. Yeah. What if? And then charges be with conspiracy, distribution. Of course, my parole, because I'm on probation, felony probation, that gets revoked. So right there, that's like a year and a half. I had like suspended sentence. Right. So I'm like, shit, I'm gonna get some time for that.
Yeah, you're going to jail no matter what.
No matter what. And so, but I wait almost a year in county jail because I'm like, we're gonna fight these distribution charges. Like my lawyer's like, this is the state. Like we're gonna go all the way if we need to, unless he drops this down to just a money laundering, and we'll roll in when it comes to like plea, we'll roll in the time for the violation. So I went to prison for money laundering.
Okay, so
it's rare. It's rare that you go to a state. My crime was very rare. Your
charge was.
My charges were rare. Yeah, my crime was incredibly common actually. But the charge when I was in the state was pretty exceptional.
Yeah. I was going to say there's not a lot of guys in state prison for money laundering.
Yeah, exactly.
That's almost embarrassing. That's like getting arrested by an IRS agent. It's like I've met guys who they're like here they have these crimes. They're like I'm like, so was it FBI? They're like, no, IRS. Like IRS.
I got arrested by the Park Service.
How they arrest? Do they have guns? He's like, oh no, they got guns and everything. No, they came to my house. I'm like,
that's wild.
They have like three or four IRS agents, and they're backed up by like the U.S. Marshals or something. I'm like, no FBI. No, they had guns.
Wow.
Like that's embarrassing. Actually, I mean, the mailman arrested you.
Yeah, right. Well, but you got me respect in prison because you're especially like the white boys. They're in there. If they're not in there for murder or something crazy.
You can say $600,000. Like they've never seen $600,000. Most somebody in states never seen $100,000.
Right.
And they'll get 30 years or 20 years.
Right.
Because typically there's they kidnap someone or they beat someone up or they hurt somebody.
There's violence involved.
Yeah, there's lots of violence in the state.
Yeah, and then tons of sex crimes. Yeah. So it's like, especially in Oregon. So immediately it was that. Combined with some other things when I was in prison, kind of let me be a non-affiliate. Didn't have to be in a gang or anything like that. Didn't have to roll with the car. People respect, like even psychos with swastikas on their knuckles respect intelligence and money.
Because they can't. They know it's not easy because they probably tried to do it or want to do it and they just can't figure it out and they don't understand. And so they do. I always say there's like a hierarchy in prison. Obviously sex offenders at the bottom, and at the top is the fraud guys, because everybody wants to be the fraud guys. They don't want to be here. And then you've got the drug guys, you've got the home invasion guy. It gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
But
and also they can't manipulate you. Like it's very obvious. Like you're not going to send me to go stab somebody.
Yeah, you don't want me. What I mean? You don't want me in the gang.
Like I'm not. I can do your social media.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can keep the books for you guys. I'll handle all the gambling. I'll let you know. Yeah, the guy in B4, so and so, Snoop, he owes you fucking $200. But I was gonna say that the no, they may or they're extorting those guys. Like if those guys end up in like a medium or a pen. Right, then you're probably extorting the fraud guys. You assume they have money, they're soft, and they're going to pay.
Right. I always kept especially in the early days when I was at Two Rivers. It's a medium now. It was a maximum back then. I always had a piece of steel on me, or at least some kind of because it's like if you're going to try to stab me, I'm at least
going to defend myself.
Yeah, and then I can at least go fight it. It's you sending me to stab somebody is going to get me 25 years. If I stab you for coming at me, I can at least have a chance in court as self-defense.
Right.
So, but then I was celled up with a shot caller who took a shine to me. And this is kind of where it gets like cool. Like it kind of becomes like an arc. I started doing stand-up. There was these talent show nights. And it would be like an old pedophile with a guitar or a harmonica. You know what I mean? It would be like some black guy that converted to Islam who's doing like slam poetry. It's like comical. And then, but it was wild. The crowd was fucking wild. If you sucked, they would start throwing shit. They would throw oranges at you. You know how much oranges there are in prison. They throw oranges at you. Fights would break out. If they would boo you. It was like being at the Apollo, right? So I would get up and I would just start like, I think my first time I ever did it, I was doing impressions of the wardens and the guards and the counselors, and it just fucking killed.
Yeah. Oh well, because they probably love that.
They love it. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this again, but I'm gonna make observations and talk shit about like the weird, stupid, absurd things. I didn't even know it was stand-up comedy. I didn't grow up watching comedy except for like Eddie Murphy and like Chris Rock, the stars. I thought you had to be black to actually do stand-up comedy and famous. I didn't think it was like actually something you do for a living. Right. Something that movie stars do for fun.
How old are you at this point, by the way?
25.
And how many people are in the prison?
A couple thousand.
Okay.
It's a fucking penitentiary, bro. It's wild. It was like a real before I went down to like a minimum to a camp.
How did you end up in a penitentiary for money laundering? Fighting
in county jail. Fighting whole shots, my age, all that shit. Okay. So my security, bro, by the time because I had to be in county for so long that by the time it came to sentencing and where to, they send me to Coffee Creek and, you go to the intake. Yeah. They decide where to send you. I had like 7 or 8 tickets on my sheet already. Okay. You know what I mean? Just for fights. For
fist fights.
Fist fights, so defending myself. Yeah.
So they're essentially saying you've got a violent
whole
crime.
Shots. Exactly. So I had to do a minimum 6 months in a max. And I ended up being there for like 8.5 before I got shot. But I got eligible for a drug program because my lawyer was like, oh, this poor kid's an addict.
Yeah. So
addicted to money, addicted to the game, motherfucker.
So you're at the pen doing stand-up.
Yeah, but I just start killing, and I'm like, what's going on? This is fun, and I'm like writing screenplays, like sitting like a monk by candlelight, in the middle of the night.
Trust me, I know.
Yes, you're right. So you exactly. So and my Jimmy just takes a shine to me, and he's a lifer. He's approaching the end of his life. He's done. All his appeals are wiped out. Yeah. But he's kind of found he's developed that peace within yourself. Like this is where it ends. And so he really liked me, and he liked that I wanted to make a change. That I was like, man, I really love this. Like I've always been a writer. I want to move to Hollywood and be like an actor and a writer, and
they get to kind of live vicariously.
Exactly. And so that was really like kind of touching. And so he was like, you don't touch this guy. You know what I mean? Like the white boys don't touch him. And he was like, you got to go do this you should do comedy. And I'm like, no, you can't do, that's crazy. It's just a fun thing I do. He's like, you should do some stand-up comedy. So it was always kind of in the back of my mind, but I'm like, yeah. But
there can't be a tougher crowd.
No. But I got out. I found out they were an amazing crowd.
Right.
The best audience members that you could say anything to. Prison crowds.
Yeah.
As long as you're funny.
Yeah.
Right. But then I got out and I started doing open mics in LA for these like.
Is this the guy that attacked?
These like 21-year-old. No. That was later. I'm 28 when I finally get to LA, and I'm doing open mics. This is 2014 at the height of what's called like the alt comedy boom, alternative comedy, and this is like liberal arts comedy. I'm doing comedy at open mics with these like 20-year-old, like privileged, hyper privileged.
Right.
Liberal, brainwashed white kids that go to Occidental, right? And I'm doing jokes about black people and fucking prison rape.
And they're just
I'm
so
bombing. They're like, they hate me. Right. It's not just like it's not funny. They hate me. So I'm like, wow, I'd much rather do this for gangbangers, So it took a while before I found my voice, comic voice, my lane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of the brutality of the first few years of actually trying to do stand-up comedy. You know what I mean?
So I went to the Medium, right, for 3 years. And there were guys getting stabbed there and everything.
Yeah.
But what was hilarious was when I went from the medium to, and keep in mind in the medium, obviously there's guys getting stabbed, but there's like trannies there. I don't know if there was any trannies.
Yeah, there was one where I was at.
Full-blown tits.
Yeah.
Ass implants.
Yeah.
I mean, it was bad.
Dick?
Yeah, I've still got the equipment, but I mean, it's not like there's multiples walking around, and these guys who have life sentences, that's a woman.
Yeah, for sure.
And these guys are like stabbing each other over these fucking.
Right.
It's funny, you would think like, I knew a gay guy named Kiki, this didn't do me any favors at all, bro. Like the first day I walked into the unit at the medium, I had been locked up with Kiki in Atlanta. So he was in my unit. So when I walk in, I'm trying to be tough, it's hard at my height, but I'm walking, I'm throwing some bass in my voice. I got, I'm holding out and doing the lat spread thing. I'm trying to walk in with my roll, and I walk in, and everybody, of course, immediately 150 guys, and they're all kind of looking down. There's the different tiers. They're all kind of looking down on you. You walk in, and all of a sudden I hear, Matt, oh my God. and there's Kiki waving to me from the second tier. And I'm like, Kiki, what's up? And I realized that didn't sound good.
Yeah.
You just made a mistake.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But anyway, after I went through the medium, the funniest thing was when I went to low, the carnival atmosphere in the yard at the low was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So I you come in at like just before 4 o'clock count, you get counted.
Yeah.
And then you go eat, you come back. I don't know anybody. I'm not walking around. So you stay the night. Well, you could, at the low, after they counted you at 10 o'clock, you could walk into the TV room.
Yeah.
So I go in the TV room, but there's really nobody there. I'm in a Unicore unit where they work at Unicore. So these guys are going to bed, man. They're waking up at 4 and 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
They're like, we're going to work tomorrow.
That's literal slave labor.
Right. So, but it's great because the unit's quiet.
Oh,
and the fucking how horrible the units are. They're so loud.
Yeah.
So I go in the TV room. I turn on the TV. This guy walks in, and he says, so where you from? He starts chatting me up, right? White guy. They called him slow motion because he had a hernia, so he walked around like this all the time, slowly. So I love the nicknames,
God, I love how
right?
funny black people are.
So
they only come from the brothers.
Yeah, but this is a white guy, but I think they probably did get a name from the slow
My
motion.
nickname was the brothers called me Dirk.
Dirk? Why?
After Dirk Nowitzki, because I was lights out on the basketball court. My first day in prison, they recruited me, they drafted me, and I was just wet. For some reason, I was just on, because I used to be a hooper. And I was just draining them, like we were sweeping the teams. Right. We were sweeping the other teams. So they called me Dirk.
The names are great. There was a white boy that used to run, like he was super athletic. They called him the White Knight. They have these great names. Yeah. I didn't get a name. I didn't get a fucking name. So it was just Cox.
Hey,
I tried to push Chainsaw. They were like, Cox, it's not going to happen. Maybe Paperclip.
You're like Kanye West trying to give your own name.
Yeah, no, you don't get to do it. You
can't name your own. Yeah,
I tried to push. I've tried to push for like a month or two. Everybody's like, bro, stop. Stop. It's embarrassing. And, I tried to do the black thing. Like you walk by a guy and they go, hey, Cox, what's up? I go, I can't call it. And they go, stop. I go, what? They go, don't. I know you're trying, bro.
And not organic.
Yeah, I'd be like, no, I thought I really pulled that off. And they're like, it sounds even worse. You sound even more white.
Do you know what? If you want to sound cool when you get a black greeting, I learned this. Greet me. Say what's up, Mitchell. What's up, Dirk?
Mitchell? What's up, Dirk?
Nah. Yeah. Or shit. Or yup. Literally.
Right.
How's it going? Yup. That's what you do. Then they're like, damn, that motherfucker don't give a fuck.
I don't need to know that. Hopefully cool. That's not going to be, I don't need that for the next time. So, But this guy talks to me, right? So the next day he goes, we got to go to the yard tomorrow. And I was like, okay. So we go out to, I go, okay. So we go out to the yard and they had like karaoke Tuesdays. And so there was more punks on the low than in the medium.
Oh, yeah.
And they would get up and they would do karaoke. Like they're singing Madonna. They're into it. And there would be massive crowds.
Yeah.
And, there's guys selling slices of pizza. They're selling hot dogs. Wow. They're selling sodas. They're walking around. They got a big ice thing with soda in it that they've taken like shirts or pants and they've knitted. They'll cut the pants leg off, cut them, sew them together, and then knit them together. And make a satchel for ice. And they got ice and it's
ingenious.
It's amazing. So it was like a fucking carnival.
Yeah.
And they're singing, they're doing comedy shows, they got bands. They got bands that you're like, how are you not
don't have a record deal?
How are you not doing this on the fucking street?
Right.
Like this is better with shittier equipment, and this is better than any concert I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And yet
there's a lot of that in the feds. There's a lot more enterprising in the feds, it seems like, too. Don't you think? I
haven't been in the state, but it sounds like you were fucking having a blast.
Yeah, no, I did. I wasn't having a blast, but I'm just saying in terms of like economy, prison economy,
there's more money. There's more money.
There's more money in the feds.
Yes.
And it feels like they let more shit happen. I could be wrong about that.
It depends on the prison.
Yeah.
So, but I do know, this is just from what I've heard, because I've never been to California, but California federal, it's kind of like California state prison is a different animal. Than any other state. Yeah. And then California federal prisons, from what my buddy Pete said, because he did probably 20 years in California state prisons. He's like, there's just an ungodly amount of money. He's like, I mean, like what I can charge $500 for doing legal work in Coleman, he's like, you're getting $3,500. He's so filled with cartel guys and money being sent, and it's such a part of their culture to support these guys, and they all know they're going to prison, so they've all got money sitting out there. Yep. And they know we put money on here. They go in, they're putting money on 6 guys' books. Their lockers packed. They're living like a king, and they're paying big money. Yeah,
for everything.
Right.
Dope, cigarettes, legal service.
Yeah, I was gonna say
whatever it is,
vastly different. It's kind of like, and I will get right back to this because I want to finish obviously your story. And I don't know if you noticed this in the state that black guys, at least in the feds, their family will drag their kids out to see them.
Oh yeah,
we'll put money on their books. Like their family supports them when they're in prison. If you're a white guy, a middle class white guy, you get very little support
because it's
it's a part of their culture.
It's a part of their culture. Yes, and it's more normalized. And I would argue there should be more shame. It's not to say black people, but their families do feel shame when one of their children goes to prison, for sure. But it is just it's a more normal part of the community. Right. They have an uncle or a brother or a cousin who's been locked up before. So when it happens to their kids, it is just a thing they do. And like my parents came out to see me all the time, but we didn't talk about it. They're not
telling their friends.
They didn't give updates to their friends. They didn't give updates to the extended family. It was like a very insular, embarrassing thing for them.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that's kind of what keeps middle-class people from committing crime is the taboo of it.
Yeah.
I really think embarrassment is it's a reason that people stay on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
It's a reason middle-class people don't cheat as much, like on their spouses, as opposed to like super rich people. They just have more options. It's just more accepted in the culture. And perhaps, the lower class people, the same thing. But I think you're totally right about that.
So when you were getting out of prison, did you think I want to do comedy when I get out? Because you live in LA, right?
Yeah, I live in LA. I got released early 2012 out of some tiny little camp on the Oregon coast, beautiful little piece of land. It's not even a prison anymore. I knew that I was going to LA immediately. I didn't know that I was going to do comedy though. I thought it was going to be writing and acting.
Why did you think that? Because you have written some screenplays and why'd you think that you were going to be successful?
Because that's where, delusion.
Okay.
But also I was like, oh, this is a thing that clearly people will pay money for.
Right.
It's TV networks, movie studios. I can provide them something. It was like an economic decision.
Right.
I was like, I don't know. Hopefully I could become an actor, but writing is like, that's that essential thing that drives. They always have to have content. But I didn't know what content was though. This was like before the internet dominated anything.
Is this like the stuff you were writing, was it fiction?
It was all like crime, drug shit, relay. It all sucked. It's all in the back of my closet somewhere with all my other scripts that never got picked up. You know what I mean? It was all based around that. It was fiction, but it was like sometimes loosely based on my story, sometimes based off stories of other people that I heard.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
It's a good story, but I'm going to alter this, or the guy won't get killed, or he'll get shot. You know?
Yeah, and it was like I didn't know the odds of actually getting a movie to go. And then I very quickly, when I was in LA, the golden era had already passed by 2012 when I got there. Mm-hmm. Studios were bankrupt. They were only making tentpole franchise movies.
What's that?
Like Superman, tentpole.
Oh, yeah.
Just big. I can sell lunch boxes. And I can get a Universal
$200
theme
million
park. Exactly.
$300 million budget.
It's only going to the Chinese. Yeah. They're only Chinese people are watching this, right? So influencers started to become a thing pretty quickly. So I was like, this feels like a job. This feels like, A, it feels impossible. And B, it feels like even if I became a writer in a writer's room, at NBC, that's like a job. Right. Like I want to be a rebel. I want to be an artist. And so I'm like, fuck it, let's try. And I would go into these acting classes and I would just fuck up. I would kill. I get huge laughs. And so my acting teachers encouraged me to go do stand-up. So that's how it began. So I said, okay, fuck it, let's go do it. And that was 2014, and have a look back.
So what happened? Because I saw a video
of getting attacked?
Yes.
That was my first viral video. It's got crazy millions and millions and millions of views.
And listen, when I watched it, I don't know who you are. This was when it was going viral. I don't know who you are. And somebody sent it to me and everything. Yeah. And it's when you I do remember you basically said, "Oh, you must have snitched" to the guy. And I thought that as soon as you said that, I thought, "Oh, that's a bad move." Then you get the guy next thing you know, he's up on stage coming at you, and I thought, "Yep, I knew that was a bad." As soon as you said it, I thought, "Oh, I wouldn't say that."
Dude, when you call a black guy a snitch in a room full of other black guys,
oh no, he's got to do something. I thought it was a Mexican guy. No,
he might have been like a Dominican. He was black. He was blackish. And it was like a ghetto fucking show. It was a show like
all the more reason not to say that.
Yeah, no shit. But I was off an edible. Like I'd taken an edible earlier, and that's the reason my reaction speed too. Like I didn't immediately just start swinging on him because I'm like it was like such an out of body experience. I'm like, is that guy really rushing the stage right now? He's not really gonna put his hands up. Whoop! And he had my collar, and I was like, that's when I sobered up, And you don't see us, but we're like hockey wrestling off camera.
Yeah. You hear like a bunch of
Well, dude, I was killing so hard. I was embarrassing that guy. Like I was the victim. Like people were telling him to shut the fuck up. Like, and I was just the easiest crowd work is when a buffoon like that is yelling shit out. You just jujitsu them. And I was just embarrassing him in front of his girl. And so we're resting on the ground. I pull his hood over his head. I'm like trying to fucking punch him in the side of the head, right? It's just mayhem. The black guys, other people in the audience come over and they start like stomping him. That's what you don't see on camera. Because
he ruined the show. He's
and I was killing and they loved me. Yeah. So as soon as I went viral like that, and then I clipped it, because that was like a 6-minute long interaction. And so I clipped it a different way, like with different reactions, threw that up. That still got like 10 million views. So I was like, oh, dope. I started to make a little bit of YouTube money. And I'm like, what can I do as a podcast that's different? Right? Like everybody's got a comedy podcast. There's no getting ahead doing that shit.
Is this 14 or 15?
No, bro. This is 20. This is now. I got attacked in, Brian, what year was that? 2022. Early 2022. Oh, because the Chris Rock thing happened a week after. The Chris Rock, Will Smith slap happened a week after.
Okay.
That happened to me. So it was perfect timing. So that was like early 2022. And then
only a couple of years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, and I've been podcasting, like slogging along with like a couple thousand views a video, and just, it wasn't I was good at it.
It was just comedians.
Comedy. It was
stuff?
comedy. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it was like man on the street stuff, prank stuff. I was like looking for my voice, you know. But I was like, okay, I'm good at podcasting though. Like this is like something I do well is speak. You know, it's one of the few things I have a knack at. And so I would watch these like drug videos and prison videos in my YouTube algorithm.
What about the prison type genre?
Yeah, exactly. Like, but then I would also see, and they were all like really shitty. They were made on like an iPhone.
Yeah.
By some, cholo, a bunch of tattooed teardrops is like telling me about the craziest shit he saw in a Mexican prison.
Right.
But it would have millions of views. And I'm like, interesting. And then I would see like Vice News. It would be like some guy from Oxford would be like, the Sinaloa cartel.
Right.
He'd be like trying to tell me, but I'm like, wait, fuck him. I've been with the Sinaloa cartel. Like I could tell you about it.
Right.
And so we kind of like married the two. And that's when I started doing these videos. That's how I started to connect.
Okay.
And so we just started, Brian, who's sitting over there, he's my editor and producer. We just started putting out these like weekly videos, just talking about my story, but weaving them into like a larger, like historical context about like drug trafficking and like what it's really like in the system. And, it did well. It took off. So now we interview people and we're spinning off doing other stuff. And, it's leading to a whole lot of different unique opportunities.
When you did Danny, so you had started the podcast by the time you did Danny's.
Danny
I love that.
Oh, concrete.
Danny Jones. That sounds familiar.
Oh yeah, he's in Tampa. He's your competition, dude. He's on the other side of town.
He's doing great.
He's doing great. Yeah.
You know what he does now? Like that, talk about, like you said, finding your voice, right? Like he literally has shifted from real estate. No, first start these mini documentaries he did to real estate, because he had a real estate guy that used to come all the time, to kind of true crime-ish. Mm-hmm. And now in the last year, it's been almost exclusively UFO, conspiracy theory, and everything he puts out, 300, 400, half a million, a million.
Totally. No, he's great. He's, I did Concrete. That was the first big podcast I got on. And then
changed it to Danny Jones.
Yeah, it's the Danny Jones show now. It's, do we need to get that? Who the fuck's here? Is this the feds? Oh God, I got a show tonight. Anybody got warrants? So I started to connect in September of 2022. By the time I did Danny's show, Concrete, which is now the Danny Jones show, in December, we already had 300,000 subscribers. So it was pretty
fucking ridiculous,
insane growth. And then 2 months after that, Brian and I went out and filmed started doing kind of documentaries, influencer documentaries, where we're doing other people's stories. Went out to New York, did Andrew Schultz, the Flagrant podcast,
right,
which has like 2 million views now. That was so much fun.
Mexico.
Yeah, we went down to Mexico and interviewed some cartel guys. Did a whole documentary about like how the cartels actually have like weed dispensaries now in certain certain areas of Mexico, because about to be very soon, they think, legal in Mexico, which they're totally correct about. Got on some other big shows, but really just like we just keep our foot on the gas. And now we're launching another channel. We have a movie. Now I'm actually pitching movies that could get made. That's the ironic thing. It's like all coming back now. Like all these years later, now I'm like in studios, in meetings with Jews,
Oh my God.
So I got so many Jewish surnames in my phone right now, working for me and with me. So it's been an incredible journey, but I'm still out in a Florida suburban tract home doing the Lord's work.
So what, real quick, so the movies that you're pitching, is it your story you're pitching, or is it just
No. It's a combination of people that I've met and had on the Connect. We're getting the wildest interviews. We're meeting the people with the most insane stories, and they just don't have connections to the system.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, no, I know. It's like when I was in prison, like writing these, like they can't write their own stories. Mm-hmm. And then even if they got out, they don't have the temperament
Right.
to put it together.
They're
Like,
illiterate.
but they wouldn't put up with nor would they put up with the shit I've put up with. Like they're gonna be at a meeting and fucking come over the table where I'm like, okay.
Can you imagine Unique and being told no? Our friend Unique, he's a very cantankerous Jamaican former crack kingpin. Like him being given notes just by us was a nightmare. Just for us to be like, hey, could you say that again? Right. Would trigger like almost violence. So for him to like, go through the years long process of actually like getting a movie to market would be pretty difficult. Pretty untenable. So I'm very, very excited about all that. But the anchor of all this is the podcast and the content, right?
Right.
Like that's and that I'll probably be doing real estate soon. I'm moving to Florida, bro. I'm moving to Miami. Suck my dick. I fucking love it out here. I really do.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I love
Florida, but a lot of people well, you're not really from LA. I was gonna say people live in LA, they can't imagine living. I couldn't live anywhere else. It's like, really?
Yeah, but that's all changing if you look at the demographics.
Oh, I know.
A lot of people are moving to Florida and
what's
Texas.
So funny? It's all the rich people that are moving. You know what
I'm
saying?
Is that right?
Yeah, I feel like they're all like those are the ones making videos saying, I'm leaving.
Right.
I'm getting hit. I'm at 50% of my income's going straight.
Those are the $5 million a year rich people, $5 to $10 million a year.
Right.
The ultra rich they're still in California because they're so rich.
They don't really pay taxes.
When you're in, well, yes or whatever. But if you live in Montecito, where Oprah lives, you're completely cut off from the consequences of your political party. Right? You're not around homeless people of San Francisco, of the Tenderloin. You're not around, the graffiti everywhere in LA, the trash, the homeless. It doesn't affect you. So you could just say, yay, compassion, more money, more Democrats.
It's like the like I was saying about of course, give them $20 an hour. Of course it does.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right.
You're making $5 million, but you're telling the IRS that you're making $100,000, so you don't care that you're at least able to. Your companies that are making that money are in this state over here, and you're paying. There's so many. It's so funny because like the more rich you get, the less percentage of taxes you pay. You think it would get bigger, but it doesn't.
It depends. But if you're making $1 million a year as a high paid attorney and you live in Cali, you're really getting bent over and whacked out for half of your shit. So those are the people that are like, I can't stand it.
They're leaving.
Yeah, those are the ones who are leaving. Yeah.
Listen, I mean, Florida's great. The only problem is the heat. And honestly, how much time do you spend outside?
Yeah, I like being outside, but I'll be on the water.
So where are you going to move to Miami?
No.
Oh, okay.
But maybe. I honestly, I don't know. I have to wherever I go, I have to bring Brian with me. So we're going to try to get him out here. But Brian doesn't the problem is he burns easily. And he's a very like liberal guy. He doesn't like the politics.
He is kind of a ginger.
He's super ginger.
Yeah.
Liberal is offensive.
So I don't know if I can get him out here. But you know what? He'll just work remote. I'll hire another team. I am moving to Miami.
Yeah.
For a couple of years. I feel like I have one more.
I feel like that's the incentive.
I have one more like adventure in me. And I think Miami, before I'm like married and settled down, I think I want a Miami experience. But I could just be romanticizing it. But
I'm also curious to know, were you already doing comedy when you started selling drugs, or how did that
No, that started when I was in prison for selling drugs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So look, I don't have that remarkable of a story. My channel blew up because of, the flashiness and the whatever it was.
What you also
my charisma, other people's stories.
Because of the comedy, this is what I was telling Colby before you came here. I said, well, the thing is, I said, because of the comedy thing, I said he ended up getting on a bunch of big podcasts that were for comedians. I said, you have a story, you go on a podcast that's got 3 million subscribers. I said, your channel's going to blow up. Like, that's going to be a huge draw.
Well, you know what's funny is
you're funny. I also said that. I said, and he's funny.
Well, I appreciate that. What we found out is that our channel's got most of its growth. Like, yes, Flagrant with Andrew Schultz was amazing, kind of life-changing, Tom Segura. But we get the most of our growth just through the videos, just through our own videos, organically, which has been pretty cool. Like, that's kind of bragging rights, It's very hard to go on somebody else's platform now. It's not like going on Joe Rogan back in 2018, when podcasting was still like a relatively like infant industry.
There's tons of them now.
Now there's so many of them. So you could go on somebody's shit and they really like you and they're like, oh man, this guest is great. He killed it. But to get them to go over to your page,
right?
Because especially when they're so dialed in, like your fans, they're so dialed into you, and you have so much content every week. They might love me, but it's a big stretch to ask him to then like go commit to me. It's like families almost,
right.
you know. So, but the comedy definitely led all of this.
Right.
Just having a background, 10 years of stand-up comedy before I started doing the Connect was big, because then there's a lot of abilities that you hone when you're going through the brutality of learning how to do stand-up comedy. Right. It was hell.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
life was bad for a lot of years. Life was very good in my younger years, very bad for a pocket of years after that, and now it's good again.
Because you're so old now. I was going to say, well, one, I always mention this to, this actually came up one time. So I went to LA one time and I was supposed to be on Kill Tony. And you have to stand up and do a 1 minute. And keep in mind, this is Tyler. Yeah. He calls me and he's like, oh, hey, it's great. I got you on Kill Tony. It's kind of cool. I do a good Tyler, right?
It's a good Tyler.
He's like, and I'm like, well, what is that? And he's like, so he sends me some stuff and I look at it. I go, okay, well, what's with these? What are these people doing up front? Like, are these comedians? He's like, oh, no, that's something. You're going to have to get up for a minute and do a routine. I was like, what? Oh, you're funny. It should be easy. I said, no, that's not easy, bro. I said, that's not easy. And he's like, oh, you're smart. You'll figure it out. I said, no. I said, you have to really know what you're fucking doing. Oh, but you're funny. I said, no, funny talking shit to another guy and every once in a while you're funny is different than standing up and trying to make people laugh, on cue. I said, no. Now, but I was supposed to go on the show. Luckily, at the last minute, like I had a time. I had a problem because I was meeting with a producer and he changed the time and I had to back out. Nice. And I was I've never been so fucking relieved.
Don't you love that, dude? Oh, because I've had times I was supposed to go on Kill Tony that have just not fallen through, and I'm like, oh, it's the greatest day ever.
And the reason I think I was so nervous was I had watched Barbara Walters. You know Barbara? Yeah. Okay. So Barbara Walters, when she was retiring, was being interviewed herself. Yeah. Just before it was the last interview, and they were interviewing her, and she said, and I mean like this, like she was ready for it. Well, she might have even had it prepped. The woman said, "You've interviewed a lot of people." She goes, "What do you think the smartest group of people you've ever met, were?" And she goes, "Comedians." Wow. Just like that. And she goes, "Comedians." She's like, "You've interviewed doctors, lawyers, scientists." She said, "Yeah, and they're smart." She said, "But comedians are fast." She said, "You really have to be smart to have that level of to be able to put something together that's comical that quickly." She goes, "They're very sharp." She goes, "And I think that takes a real genius that people don't." Basically, she said that people don't realize. And I remember thinking, fuck, like I really started paying attention after that, and I realized it because people are always saying, like, you should be a comedian. No, bro. No.
Yeah, comedians, there is a genius quality to the best comedians. But the intangible is the narcissism and the self-hatred.
Right.
Most people are content to just be funny with their friends, and if they're at a cocktail party, they get one off, they get a big pop, feels nice, and then you go back to your life.
Yeah.
Comedians are like, oh, no, I need to make thousands of strangers in theaters and nightclubs.
And I have to
4 times a weekend around the country just to feel satisfied. Like, what is that?
And I have to be cocky and arrogant enough and narcissistic enough to stand on a stage and be willing to do like that. That is like, that's extreme confidence, which let's face it, all narcissism really comes from a deep-seated insecurity.
That's right.
But yeah, that's ballsy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out there and I'm going to just hold myself up to ridicule and know that I can take it.
And the gall, you're right. The gall to think that you are worth it, like on the market, to go to Side Splitters, where I'm going to be tonight, and make, most of them, some of them will be fans, but most of them will be strangers who owe me nothing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now we're starting from zero. So the material has to stand on its own. Yeah. And that's why it takes so long. You can't just go write a minute and perform it and kill it. It's a craft.
So you're doing comedy and you're doing the Connect.
Doing the Connect, and then we're launching other media from the Connect. We're launching like ancillary YouTube content. But I could consider myself more of a influencer now. And yes, the stand-up is growing little by little, selling more tickets on the road. But I got to be honest with you, I'm not in love with the lifestyle of being on the road every weekend.
Right.
And even if I were selling out, big time, talking like $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 weekends, I think that would grow old quickly. I don't like being in airports. I'm too tall. I'm 6'6", so I'm not really built for fame. You know what I mean?
My heart just breaks for you.
Yeah, I know, right? God, what fucking
I got blonde hair, blue eyes.
Rich guy problems.
I'm tall. Life is so hard.
I sound like the pretty girl. Jesus. I sound like the bimbo in high school. But it's I don't love that. So I think comedy will always, for the most part, be like a localized thing to either LA or New York. Right. And then select my markets. Florida's a great market. Okay.
Why? Just the money's good, or?
Yeah, the money's good. People come out.
Okay.
It's a culture where people like coming out to, not in Miami so much. They're mostly too dumb to get comedy. I mean, it's wild to think Tampa's a lot smarter than that. You know what I mean? But it's and also, there's not much political correctness here, right? The people like balls to the wall comedy, which I appreciate.
What's funny is people will ask me, well, you're in Florida, you're whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'm in Central Florida though. And they'll go, well, yeah, I've been to Miami. I'm like, yeah, I'm not really in Miami. And they're like, well, it's the same. Well, it's still Florida. I'm like, no. I'm like, Miami. If you're driving in Miami and you put your blinker on, there's no fucking chance anybody's letting you in. It's not going to happen.
Right.
If you pull over and you got a flat tire, nobody's stopping for you. You better figure it out. So I said, in Tampa, you put your blinker on, maybe 3 cars, and somebody's going to be like, get in, you fucking idiot. Right. But they're going to let you in. Mm-hmm. If you're an old person, you got a flat tire, they're going to pull over and fix your tire. You don't know what you're doing. You're not going to be super sweet about it. But they're going to be like, you don't know what you're doing. I got this.
Yeah. But Miami is Latin America more than it is Florida, don't you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. They all speak. Listen, I've been in restaurants. They don't speak any English at all,
and they don't try to.
Yeah, they don't have to.
No, but I mean, they can see you're not an English speaker, and they don't give a fuck.
No,
and the service is like Latin American service. Bad, poor. Again, people's heart breaks for us.
I know. So I was okay. So you think? So what are you thinking you're going to stick with? I mean, you're just going to grow the Connect, right? That's got to be the goal, right?
Of course. Well, you know what? It is the goal, but I'm actually our 2-year plan is to move out of the crime space a little bit,
right?
To where it's not so hyper niche. That you have to do that at the beginning now to get ahead on the internet because everything is niche. There's no way you can be broad unless you're already famous, right?
Right.
So, but I would like to get into more current events and politics. So we're doing some of that right now. We're launching that.
Seems dicey.
Soft launching. But I don't take any real hard political stance. I'm talking about the news. I want to give a take on Ukraine. I like that shit. I've always been into, I'm a college boy.
Yeah.
So I'm a little deeper than just talking about meth. But yeah, no. I think, but look, anything can happen in this game, in the media space. So if comedy suddenly breaks, I'll probably go with that.
Yeah.
I'll probably put less attention into this because you kind of have to go with what's working.
I was going to say, to me, I'm an opportunist. If this is failing, I'm not going to go down with the ship.
Yeah,
it's failing.
Yeah.
This is where I'm making my money. I need to focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been, since I got out of prison, there have been times when, when I first got out, I was painting. That was paying all my bills. But then it slowly shifted to, to YouTube.
Right.
So now I don't do any painting.
Right.
Why would I do painting when this pays all my bills?
Right.
And if you weigh how much more money you can make interviewing people as opposed to painting, there's no comparison.
Yeah. No, you were painting paintings.
Yeah. Oh, you can't even see it though. We sold all those.
Whoa, wow.
Did you see the paintings on this wall when I walked in?
No. I was too busy making sure this wasn't a trap to sell us into sexual slavery or something.
I have paintings. I paint like real.
Well, you
I
used
have a
to
degree
paint
in fine arts.
Right, that's right. You used
That's
to paint.
The big joke.
Yeah, you put paintings. We read your bio. You would put paintings in your houses to inflate the mortgage.
Inflate that. That's that fucking. Listen,
we're gonna talk about that though.
Listen,
save that for mine.
Wikipedia is such bullshit.
Well, you got a wiki page, bro. You're making it.
Yeah. The Wikipedia page, they twist everything. So it's like, I like painting murals. Yeah. So, you get a house, like if when I was committing fraud, like fraud's not a full-time job. Right. You're working 15 hours, maintaining multiple frauds, you're working 10, 15 hours. So I would paint murals on the walls, and and it wasn't really to boost the value. The boosting of the value was the fraud. I'm recording the value of this house at 5 times what it's worth. Yeah. That's what boosted that mural doesn't do anything.
Okay,
it's
so
just for fun.
Let me ask you this, because we were talking about this off pod. Trump, obviously, I think that he lost his civil suit for like $400 million in New York because they said he was inflating the value of his real estate.
Right.
But as we already said, you have the right to try to get the most for your assets.
Well,
so when does it become fraud versus when do you versus just delusional? Like, hey, buddy, your building's not worth $800 million.
I don't even think it's delusional. I think what happens when you take an application is they say, what do you think this property is worth? And you go, I think it's worth $800,000. Now, I can think it's worth. I'm not an appraiser. You ask me what I think. I think it's worth. What's the value of it? Well, I think the value is $800,000. That's fine.
Yeah.
So let me put it this way: when Hillsborough County values my house, and I bought it for $380,000, and they say your house, the land and the property is worth $200,000, are they defrauding me? What if I bought it for $100,000? They said, "Oh, it's worth $250." Right. Are they defrauding me? Would I get an appraiser that comes in and says it's worth $110?
Right.
Do we get to sue them? No. So, it's subjective. He with the gold makes the rules. So you say it's worth $800,000. They go, okay, we're going to double check that to make sure we're not going to take your word for it. So we're going to send our own guy out, and we're going to go with what we think it's worth. They may have come out and said, you know what, it's actually worth $850. What if they'd said that? Are they lying? Am I lying? Do I get a points for that? What happens is they send somebody out and they go, okay, actually, Mr. Trump, unfortunately, we think it's worth $700 million, not $800 million. So we're going to go with $700 million, but we'll do this and this, and then they try and get the deal. He says, okay, I'm fine with that, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, that is normal, everyday business in real estate. You're not lying when I think it's worth this. There may have been different things. He's not an appraiser. He may have just said, well, that hotel sold for this 2 years ago. That one sold 5 years ago. We have more rooms, and ours is newer, and we did some renovations. Honestly, I think mine's worth $800,000. Like, he's just, it's just a...
How many times on Shark Tank do people go in with valuations and then Mr. Wonderful goes, oh, you're crazy.
Right. I guess you got to arrest all those people.
Yeah.
All those people tried to commit fraud against each one of them.
So your fraud.
And there was no victim.
No, there was no victim.
Nobody lost money. The bank's thrilled with them. We want to lend them money again.
Right.
So where's the fucking victim?
Well, that's the whole big lie. It's like, what about the prime mortgage, right? Subprime mortgage. That's like a bigger crime because you're knowingly overvaluing and letting people run with that kind of credit.
Right.
So it's like the crime of enabling.
Yeah. Well, the Trump thing, my stance on the Trump thing, it has nothing to do with Trump. If it had been Biden and he was in the same situation, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't give a shit that it's Trump. I'm saying you can't, that's bullshit. You can't say like that. That is, you're creating a fraud. And in this case, you're only creating a fraud to try and penalize somebody because you have a political motive against it. So
I didn't believe it. Yeah. I heard weaponization of the Justice Department back FBI, before COVID, and I was like, oh, this motherfucker. I fell for the propaganda. And I'm not like some super liberal guy, but like I'm from Oregon, Democrat all my life. I'm like, this is crazy. I fell for Russiagate, and now it's like as plain as fucking day.
Isn't it funny though?
It's crazy.
Isn't it funny? Like if you go back and look at all the insane shit that he said, and you're like, because at the time I'm thinking when he's like, oh, this China virus and China, I'm like, what's with this dude? Oh, it came out of the Wuhan this and Wuhan lab, and it's like. Nobody's saying that. What are you talking about? 2 years later, it was from China. It was was he eloquent? No. I love the comparison when Obama comes out and talks about how, I forget what the name of the terrorist they killed. He's like, they've got a comparison between Trump coming out and talking about it, where Obama comes out and he says, Udab, tsunami, was
Eliminated?
very presidential, high value target. He was executed. He was this. He was taken out. Boom,
he was
boom,
taken
boom.
out.
Right. Very simple, very elegant. He sums it up, and then they have Trump come out. Ubabo Sugako to. They killed him like a dog. And it's just like
he's hilarious.
It is hilarious,
wild.
but it's like is he presidential? No, he's not. But I'm okay with his policies.
Well, but our country has always had an appetite for populism. Andrew Jackson had a lot of that Trump thing where he was like, and Andrew Jackson was a monster,
right?
Horrendous Indian killer, enslaver, and all that shit. But he was like, these central banks are fucking us, and he was talking to like poor people in the South who didn't own slaves,
right?
He was like the overreach of the federal government, and he was talking about stuff like the weaponization of the military to take away your rights. America's always had a distrust of the elites,
right?
Even though everybody wants to be an elite and should, in my opinion, it's way better. But so Trump's actually not doing anything new, but he's killing it. Well, it's not what you do; it's how you do it.
It's funny. What happened the other day? This happened months ago, where they were passing. Was it California that was passing like a fast food restaurants, or they're going to pay them all like $19?
It's like $20 an hour minimum. Yeah.
And I went, I heard it and I kind of laughed, and my wife was like, "What's so funny?" I said, "What's funny is," I said, "that hurts lower middle class people." And she's like, "No, it doesn't. It's because they're giving them more money and this and that." And I went, No, it doesn't. I said, it won't hurt somebody who's making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because I said, first of all, they don't eat a lot of fast food. No. Secondly, even if they did, I said a poor person's budget is, let's say, 15% of their gross, 15% of their food.
Their food budget.
I said, and a rich person is maybe 2%. Mm-hmm. I said, so even if it jumps from 2% to 3% because of this hike, I said, the person at 15% just jumped to 25 or 30%. I said, so you tell me, who does that hurt? They're now spending 30% of their money to try and eat. I said, so it doesn't hurt the guy that just jumped from 2% to 3%. I go, so they're laughing about it. They don't care.
I know.
Tax them to death.
Right.
But I said, but poor people here, I'm going to make $20 an hour. And they're like, yeah. Right. It's like, because you're not thinking about it
now
correctly.
A Big Mac costs $15, right? Or a number 2 will cost you like $16.99.
Right. They're not because they're not looking that far down the line.
Well, I mean, economics is befuddling for most people.
Yeah.
Like it's just wild. It's a science though.
Yeah.
Like this is what happens with markets. It's nobody's screwing anybody from the top down. These are how markets react when the cost of inputs go up, right?
What is that? What's the pyramid where it's the
food pyramid?
No.
Pyramid of Egypt?
No, there's a pyramid.
Pyramid scheme?
No, there's a pyramid of I forget the name. They've got a name for it, but basically it's like 90% of people are just trying to feed themselves, keep a roof over their head. Yeah. Then the next one is they're looking for,
and then 9% of the remaining 10%.
Well, it keeps going up. The next level up is like they're trying to save enough for retirement, and then the next one up is they're trying to build wealth for their family, and then the next one is they're worried about their legacy. And almost nobody ever gets to be those are people that want to be president, senators. Nobody gets that high. Yeah. Most 90% or it's like probably 70 or 80% of people can barely keep a roof and feed themselves.
Yeah,
that's when. So of course they're not thinking that far along. They're thinking, I got to get my check on Friday and cash it so I can pay my car payment before it's late, and I get charged an extra $40. And like that's
80% of people.
Yeah, it's like 70 or 80%. You got to look it up.
We were part of growing up. I was part of the whatever say 10% above that was, or maybe like 15%.
Right.
So it was. I grew up in like this very unique. You could call it like the last bastion of like real like middle class America,
Right.
which was cool.
How old are you?
I'm 38, so I grew up in the 90s and the 2000s.
Okay.
I'm just shoehorning this into talking about me.
Yeah.
I'm the king of transitions.
I was in the 80s, so
Yeah. Better time. Man, I missed that.
the other is like excess. Like yeah, there was still I was gonna say there still was a solid middle class in the 70s and 80s, and then by the 90s it starts to trickle out. By 2000
Right.
it's shrinking and shrinking.
Right. And people like my parents that started out, I mean, my dad was a lawyer, right? And people hear that and they're like, oh, you grew up spoiled. He showed me his receipts from like 92 when we moved into the house that I basically grew up in. He was making 40 grand a year.
Yeah. Most lawyers don't make what people think they make.
Right. But 40 a year. And then my mom made another 40. We lived in like, they were able to buy their house with a low interest rate, and it's now worth $1 million. And they were able to save, and because they weren't burdened by all this inflation. They're boomers.
Where was this?
Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And now, but so those people transitioned, they went from middle class to like upper middle class, and they have millions now. And that was like, that's a very rare case where you're able to like grow. The stock market is growing. They were the beneficiaries of all of the money printing that really started to pick up in the 90s and the 2000s, because everything just started going up and up and up and up and up. And the people that got in on the ground floor of having those assets.
Well, I was going to say, and they were married.
Boomers. Yeah.
Like, did you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah. One brother, one sister.
Right, so, they got married, they had kids, they stayed together.
Yep.
They lived beneath their means, and you're
Saved,
you're basically guaranteed to be able to retire with $1 million and your house paid off and Social Security.
Yep.
Like, because that's, most people don't even realize that Social Security is designed for you to have a house paid off, and Social Security will maintain you. Like, a lot of people, like, that's why I hate it when like Grant Cardone, these guys were like, you should never buy a house. It's like, you're a jackass, bro, because most people have to have their house paid off by the time they're 65. They'll never fucking make it on Social Security.
Of course, never. So it's like $1,500 a month.
Yeah,
it's bullshit.
It's, right. So, but not Miami. Okay. So, I feel like we're wrapping it up. I feel like this is it.
We covered some good ground here, Matt Cox.
2 hours? No, almost 2 hours.
It's 2 hours total right now. The first 20 minutes, we probably like an hour and 40 minutes.
You got to just take the first 20 minutes and cut it and put it to the back.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah. But that way it's nice. It's a nice 2 hour. I want the extra. We got to have the extra, and leave this in. You got to have the extra. We need the extra watch time.
Yeah.
That might be another 30 seconds of watch time.
Yeah. The longer it is, I think the more they push it sometimes too.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
if it's doing well, they're going to push longer videos.
Yeah. We try to get, the longer the better, because it's higher the watch time. It's
the
most
we've got
important
25%. Like on average, is it about 25% watch time? Is it?
Yeah, that's great.
30 to 40 minutes is
like a 2 hour video.
That's great. That's about what we do.
Yeah. So that's not, unless Zach's on.
Yeah.
If Zach's on, my buddy Zach, then it's 45 or 50%.
Why, is he really hot?
Fuck no. He's a black guy that's just fucking hilarious, and people love him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of these guys that I've been like, we started a channel. We literally started a channel for him. We forced him. We came here, did a bunch of videos, put all the videos on my channel, on his channel, like bent over backwards. Right. Colby's working for nothing, editing videos, making thumbnails, like everything. And he just has no interest in it. And people love him. Yeah. And he's just not.
The funniest, and then we can wrap with this, that is exactly why the funniest people who are in prison, by the way, I mean, these black dudes, bro, I've still to this day, and I've met some of the biggest comedians of the world, will never meet anybody as funny as these guys at the prison chow hall table.
Yeah.
But they're not comedians. They're just hilarious comic minds who have no desire. They're like, what do I need to, I gotta go do stand-up comedy and podcast? What?
Yeah.
I got other shit to do. And that's how most people think, you know?
Well, and also, unlike you, which I always get the guys in the in the comment section. They're like, why don't you have more subscribers? Jonny Mitchell's got almost 1 million. This guy's got. It's like don't compare me to Larry Lawton. Okay, Larry Lawton's got fucking bro. Listen. 99% of these fuckers, it takes years to get 20,000 subscribers. Like just because you can pick out 4 guys that fucking blew up. Okay, I'm grinding it out. That's what I'm gonna have to do.
Yeah.
So.
And that's okay. That's how comedy's been for me. I haven't been given anything in stand-up. I've had to, work my ass off.
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes it's just you just got to just grind it out. But I'm saying, but if the subscriber base, the views, like honestly, you got how many you put out 2 a week?
No, we just put out 1 episode a week.
We gotta put out. And how long are the?
But episodes? We're launching a new channel. We're going.
What's the other channel about?
It's going to be a international crime news, drug news, mixed with politics, and it's just me, just videos, 15 minutes. You're getting news about international drug trafficking,
right?
That you're not going to get anywhere else.
But the main channel, you're going to try and kind of go Joe Rogan it, right?
I think eventually, yeah. I tire talking about, the same subject.
Right.
And my curiosity's got limits when it comes to this space.
Right. Well, Michael Franzese, right?
Yeah.
So I just went out and did his, and before we were talking about it, and he was like, we talked about the mob genre, and I said, yeah, these guys, man, they're just so, they're so ingrained in it, and they're so, they're super, super interested in it. And he goes, I know. He said, you know what? But I'll be honest. He said, I just can't stand talking about it anymore.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
He said, I've talked about it to exhaustion. He goes, I want to keep doing the podcast. He said, but I'm going to start branching out. He's like you. He said, but I want to branch out into, politics. And, he said a little bit more, just get a little bit more broad so I can bring in other people that I'm interested in. Because, it's been talked to exhaustion.
Yeah.
And you kind of get, it's kind of like we're talking about, like telling your story. Like at some point I sit down and people start asking, and I'm like, I'm sick of me.
I know.
I'm so sick of. I'm sick of telling my story. And
America is too.
Thank you. 6 months or a year ago, people were like, "Do you ever get tired of it?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
But now, the last few months, I've been like, "I'm sick of me. Like, I just can't." I tell this. I don't mind telling it. I didn't mind talking to Lex, but it was just open ended. We just talked forever. Yeah. But it's always like, "Okay, can you do it in an hour? Can we go 2 hours? Can we?"
Yeah.
It just gets it's the same story. It's over and over and over again. Yeah. And I do feel like everybody's heard it, and it doesn't bring in the views like it did.
Right.
So I get you. And the worst thing is honestly, like, you're going to start another channel because you already have that subscriber base. That channel will be big.
Maybe.
I mean, your channel right now has got to be killing it.
Doing pretty well. Yeah. Doing pretty well. Yeah. I mean,
I know these guys take a chunk. I know this guy.
He takes a very generous chunk.
Yeah.
And he earns every penny, but God, he bitches.
Oh, listen, when they come in, like, I'm ready to promise anything because I'm broke and everything. And then it started making money. I was like, I'm paying this guy too much. It's not like I got greedy. All of a sudden I started thinking, like,
the percentages,
bad deal.
The percentages I negotiated at the beginning would make one think that I had no confidence that it was going to work out.
Me too.
You know what I mean? So, but Skeleton Crew's, like, I thought for a minute, and I think he did too. I'm like, yeah, we got to I want to make like a network the way your mom's house out of Texas, Tom Segura, Christina P. They just have it looks like a fucking television studio. You walk in there, you're like, this is CNN. I don't want all that. And I don't think it works really long term. And it's like, I'd rather operate with a Skeleton Crew, just 1 or 2 solid people, and then give all of the thumbnails, the clipping, give it all to the Filipino twinks.
Right. All right.
Okay. You can catch me at Side Splitters tonight. Right. being as racist as I want. I'm kidding. From Portland, Oregon. For God's
Is Side
sakes.
Splitters on Dale Mabry? Is it the one on Dale Mabry?
It's the one in Tampa. I'm not sure. It's the old club. It's the first club. Now they have another one maybe
in Ybor City?
No.
No, you're saying it's in downtown Tampa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But anyways, this won't be out by then. It's all good.
And I feel like, you ever say something, you kind of feel like, fuck, I feel like I botched that.
Yeah.
But
all the time.
But I guess I didn't botch it because I was just honest about it. And it was basically like, why should we make why make this movie?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's a great story. It's intriguing. It's interesting. I said, I think it's, and
it's also sellable though. Like look at the economics of it. Like it's a Wolf of Wall Street.
Right.
Like Brian was reading.
But there weren't anybody. But there weren't like individual victims. It's just banks. There are about 4 victims that had to pay an attorney like $5,000.
Right.
But it's not like they're poor people that were being thrown out of their houses.
Right,
they're not retirees.
That's when Brian he was reading me your bio, like your Wikipedia page as we were coming over here. And I'm like, yeah, he's just fucking over banks. Who gives a shit?
And that's kind of what I said. We
feel bad for the bankers.
That's kind of what I said, and I was like, so I think he wanted something more in depth or more, I don't know. And I don't really have it. Like, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, just being honest, and I don't have that. And I said, I know I'm supposed to say something about redemption. You want to hear something about redemption? He's like, right. I said, there's no redemption. I said, I don't feel horrible about what I did. I said, I went to prison. I don't feel horrible. I said, and there's no.
Well, when you write a movie script, you have to have some kind of. I mean, but look, Jordan Belfort didn't really have a redemptive. There was no real arc. There was no real feeling bad. He just got caught. Like, it was just an incredible run, and then it ended.
And that's
what I mean.
That's what I said. I said, look, there are redemptive qualities to it, if that makes sense. I said, but if I'm going to sit here and say I'm a changed man, and I'm this and I'm that, I said, I said, I'm just not going to fucking lie about stuff and exaggerate and bullshit anymore. I said, because I went to prison.
Well, you were
going back.
Yeah, you were locked up for too long, so you're not going to do it again.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything that even remotely could get me in front of a fucking judge.
Right. Yeah.
And I've got the guys all the time coming to me saying, hey, bro, I'll pay you. I'll give you $5,000 if you'll just sit with me for a couple hours and tell me how.
Yeah, for sure.
Out of here, bro.
Yeah.
You just texting me. I'm already on the indictment.
It's crazy.
You just got me indicted.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I get people emailing me like, "Hey, man, I love your podcast. I listen to it while I'm trafficking coke across the interstate Canadian highway. Love to be on your show." And then they leave their real name. And how many are you doing? You're doing 2 a week or 1 a week?
4 a week.
Jesus, fuck, man.
This is all I do, though.
Right. Yeah, I guess if you don't leave.
Yeah, I don't leave the house. I do 3 StreamYards a week.
Right.
I do 1 in person, and now it's getting so I don't even know what the word is. But it's because we're over 200,000 subscribers, and now I don't want to say big, but whatever. Yeah. Because we're doing now, when people, at least when they look at it, the numbers look good to them, right? They look at it, they're like, "I've got 200,000 subscribers," and then of course the first few videos that people see, because they only know what to look for. Yeah. They're novice, so they're like, "Oh, 200,000, 300, 800,000." They're like, "Oh, I got to go on this." Yeah. And then so that way, when they say, "Yeah, I definitely want to do it," if they say like, "Hey, so what do you fly me in?" I go, "No, listen, bro, I don't pay for anything."
Yeah.
I mean, you can fly yourself in, you can pay for your own hotel. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't reimburse. We don't make enough money to do that.
Yeah.
I have a business partner. Or I'm like, we can just do a StreamYard. Now, StreamYards get 10,000 views. Some of them might get 200,000.
Yeah, but if you're doing 4 episodes, it's just a different business model. Like if you're banging out 4 a week, you can take 2 of them can be StreamYards because you're getting enough volume to where you could at least
but now
turn out a living.
Now, where we were getting 3, now it's 2 people coming in a week.
Oh wow!
So that's what I'm saying is now they're like, no, bro, I got it, no problem. I'll pay for it. I can.
Yeah.
Where before they were like, I'll just do the StreamYard. You got 50,000 subscribers,
right?
But now and the great thing is, they don't realize what they're seeing.
Jonny Mitchell's a pro. I knew from the jump. I didn't care about views. I was like, we're not doing a fucking StreamYard. Yeah. We pod in person.
Yeah, but you planned 2 of them.
I'm sorry about that.
And I'm sitting there going, Tyler?
Well, first of all, you have been locked up a long time because you wake up early. You want a podcast at 10 a.m.? I get up at 10 a.m. You know what I mean? What is this shit?
My wife and I get up at 4.
It's crazy.
4 and 5 o'clock.
And you're in bed by 10?
No, by like 8:30. I'm old, bro. I'm 54 years old. It's over. Okay, so what are we doing?
Let's get into it.
Did you get all that?
Yeah, I got that.
Okay.
There might be a clip or something, but
but can I plug?
Yeah.
Cool.
Haven't we just been plugging? We just plugged 2 fucking
channels. Can I butt plug? Yeah. Well, go watch the Connect with Jonny Mitchell. Follow me on Instagram. TikTok is very fun. Big on TikTok. But I could use the Instagram boost. So if you want to find me there, and then, I'm going to start coming back on the road, doing some more stand-up dates this year. So go check out the comedy. And yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming out.
Hey, I appreciate you guys watching. If you like the video, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos just like this. Leave me a comment in the comment section. Please share the video. Also, please consider joining my Patreon. I'm not rolling like Johnny is, but so I need the extra, coffee money. It's like $10 a month. It's not that much. So I really do appreciate it. Also, we're going to leave all of Jonny Mitchell's links to his social media and to the Connect. And if the new channel's out, we'll leave that link in there too. It'll all be in the description box. Really appreciate you guys watching. See ya.